Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. It's been a while since I've posted here. Things will change around that pretty soon. We'll leave that as a little secret, maybe even change the name. Again, a little bit of a secret there. Today's episode is sponsored by Elementor. We'll be looking at using Elementor Cloud to build a successful podcast website. And I'm looking at it through the lens of the major components that make a successful podcast website. The call to actions, the homepage, the subscribe buttons to the different podcast apps, email capture, and your episode pages. Lots of stuff in today's video. Hope you enjoy it. I'll cover why I like Elementor, why it might be for you, why it might not be for you. All the thoughts are my own, even though it is sponsored by Elementor. Okay, let's get into the video. Let's start with the most obvious advantages of using Elementor Cloud instead of your traditional WordPress hosting, whether that's a shared hosting server or a managed hosting server, or maybe you even maybe like me, you have your own DigitalOcean servers or Amazon instances that you manage, which comes with all of the complexities of not only having to maintain WordPress, but also maintaining the website infrastructure, like the servers, the database, the backups, all of that stuff. That is all now included with Elementor Cloud. The price point starts at $99 a year for one website. We'll get to that in a moment. But Elementor Cloud is building all of this stuff so you can have WordPress without all of the pain of WordPress, which is everything I just mentioned, especially on the hosting side. But they're building out their hosting solution powered by Google Cloud to take all that worry away from you, either the agency owner, the freelancer, or the person who wants to just spin up her website for $99 a year. It's a fantastic price point. Let's just start there as well. It's $99 per site, and I think that's a fair price. A lot of people might say, well, hey, I can get $99 a year shared hosting. I could stuff 50 websites on a server. Yes, if you wanted to have a server hanging on by a thread of its life. Elementor Cloud will give you the $99 a year for one website, along with all of the other stuff I just mentioned, the hosting, the security, and of course, Elementor itself, the software. So they have to make money, and I think $99 a year is a fantastic price, much more than a fair price. Now, I could be so close to the flame that being in the hosting space for a long portion of my professional career, being in WordPress now for over 15 years, it's something that I look at as it's no-brainer. Because what have I been doing for the last, 2 to 4 years in the WordPress space? Is when I have friends, now that I'm no longer building websites for a living, when a friend comes to me or somebody in my local business community and they say, hey, Matt, I want to launch a website, and I normally send them over to Wix or Squarespace because I know what the overhead is like, and I'm sure you do as well, what the overhead is like to build a WordPress website. Not only build it and put it together, but understand hosting, understand plugins, security, and then not being able to point them to one single place to do that and experience WordPress. I now have an alternative. I have Elementor Cloud, and I really like that. For $99 a year, you can get the hosting and all of the Elementor stuff that you need to build an Elementor website. So if you're on the fence of whether or not you should use Elementor Cloud and you're already an Elementor customer, in other words, you already have a plugin license and you're already building websites for your customers, I think another great reason to use Elementor Cloud right now is their dashboard is really good. This is a dashboard this is still very early days for Elementor Cloud, and I think you could argue, yeah, I want all of this other stuff to be in my hosting panel. And I agree with you, but their foundation is off to a great start, and I know that they're going to make it a whole heck of a lot better. You might be thinking, why do I even care about a dashboard? Why even spend time on it? From a user's perspective. I've worked in WordPress hosting for a while. I did 3 years at Pagely, and Pagely's UI was painful at the time that I was there. It's a lot better now after they put design effort into it. But in the beginning, it was very difficult to navigate. And when we added more features, it was very difficult for people to understand where those features went. I think what they're doing with the cloud dashboard is making it very clean, very easy to use, and very easy to understand. They have a Teams option if you have an agency, which this account does not have access to at the moment, but you could share up to 10 members if you want to have people accessing the back end of a WordPress website, but you don't want to give them full account access to other areas of your dashboard. Very Webflow-y, and I think that's the competition that they're looking at in terms of a control panel and a dashboard. Things that I think we'll see in the future that you just don't have now from a traditional web hosting provider is things like staging sites, analytics, all of that stuff. I'm sure they'll start to roll that out as time marches on, but it's very easy to understand as it stands right now. And I know that they'll do a whole heck of a lot better job of this in the future. So I think the third advantage to Elementor Cloud and them still staying really close to WordPress is, number one, the dashboard of WordPress is obviously very familiar. It is WordPress. I think what Elementor will be able to do is really improve the user experience for people who want Elementor inside of WordPress. I mean, by default, you have all of your help section on the dashboard, and very familiar to if you had just installed and activated Elementor. But you know that every customer will get it, and you know that they'll improve this onboarding, like all of the quick access stuff, theme builder, global settings, templates. With a WordPress environment, it keeps it very familiar for you and especially your end users who sought out to have a WordPress website. But they'll be able to improve this over time and make it much more Elementor friendly with WordPress. Some of the other things that are really cool is they build in the automatic activity log so you can see what everyone's doing. So that's a very great feature, a very nice feature to have. So that you can, if you start to have your customers in here or your team members, they can see everything that's happening, or you can see everything that's happening with what people are doing. And then, of course, Elementor settings and all of that stuff is still Elementor, and that's how you'll build out your websites, much like you're already building out websites in a standard self-hosted WordPress website. And a very common feature, but something that I think that shouldn't be overlooked, is the site lock mode, which is on by default with Elementor Cloud websites. Many other web hosting companies have this, but it is a nice detail that they baked it in by default, because I can see a lot of people spinning up these sites, wanting to play with it, wanting to build out customer websites, or a customer coming to build their websites. And site lock basically blocks any public access from seeing the site until you shut it off. So things like SEO and just people you don't want to see your site while you're building it don't have access to it until they modify, until you shut it off, or give people a PIN code in order to access the site. And you can turn it off right here by clicking this button. That'll shut it off if you want to unlock the site. I'm going to leave it locked for now. But I think it's a great, little fine detail that I know is pretty obvious with most other web hosts, but I'm glad to see they have that stuff in here, because it is an attention to detail and a minor thing, but when it's left off, or if people can see the site, or it's indexing test content, it's a world of hurt. And it's great to see that they already realize that they should be blocking that stuff from the public, or giving a PIN code. And then on this dashboard, you can also see managing the domains. If you want to connect a domain, really easy. And then if you want access to all of your backups, they have that there. And then some other debugging common things that we see in other web hosting providers. Like I said earlier in the video, they're only going to make this better. And I really appreciate the cleanliness, the clean lines, the clean UI of the Elementor Cloud dashboard. But it's not all rainbows and butterflies. Why wouldn't you want to use Elementor Cloud? Well, for the most obvious reason is it is brand new. It's a brand new hosting service. They've been in beta for a while, and if you trust what the team can do with Elementor, the plugin, then perhaps you automatically trust what they'll do with the hosting infrastructure as well. So that is one negative, is they are brand new, and you just don't know what the reliability and the support is going to be, although they are trying to make this a successful product. So I'm pretty sure that they're not going to leave the cloud hosting in the dust while they continue to develop the plugin. In terms of the hosting itself, there are some things that will be missing. Things like SSH access, FTP access, the WP CLI functionality that you might be used to on other web hosting providers. There's just not a lot of those granular access details, and I don't know if they'll ever have them, though I'm pretty sure they'll need some access like that if they're looking to appease some of the WordPress developers that are out there, other than just managing the standalone piece of software itself. It's like WP CLI is a pretty common tool to do things like that. I don't see an easy way to export the sites other than downloading the backups. Now, you can install plugins on their platform. I don't know if they have a deny list of plugins, but one of the benefits of using Elementor Cloud that I think is I can keep people in the WordPress ecosystem. Therefore, if they ever do want to self-host it, and maybe their site's growing, beyond what Elementor Cloud can provide, especially on a real custom side of things, I can tell people, hey, you can always export your site to do that. Now, there are plenty of plugins that do it. All I'm saying is there's no built-in feature for exporting in Elementor. It's not a huge deal because other web hosts don't make it easy either. But I just hope that none of the stuff gets so customized in the Elementor build that you can't even export it to a standalone Elementor website. That would be a disaster. But those are the negatives so far. You don't have that direct access, SSH, FTP, WP CLI. You can't fine-tune the hosting, but that's the whole point. They're doing it for you. And I don't see an easy way to export it, but that might not be as big a deal for you. So the topics I'll cover in this Building a Podcast website on Elementor Cloud website will be changing the logo, changing the homepage, putting in podcast subscribe links so that users can quickly click on links to subscribe to your podcast in their favorite podcast app, and an email capture form, and then also putting the latest podcast episodes right on the homepage of Elementor. Two other plugins that I use in this example today will be the Seriously Simple Podcasting plugin created by Castos. This is what we'll use to manage all of our podcast episodes. We only have one episode so far. I'll show that in a little bit later. And then another plugin called Podcast Subscribe Buttons. The podcast subscribe buttons are also built into Seriously Simple Podcasting, but if there are other buttons you don't want to use, or you don't end up using the Seriously Simple Podcast plugin, this plugin will do that as well. That's the podcast subscribe buttons. So in today's video, I want to build a podcast website using Elementor Cloud. I decided to start the Elementor Cloud website using their basic blog theme for a few reasons. Number one, for me anyway, I like simplicity. The cleaner a theme is, the better it is for me, the better it is for the user. If you're running a podcast or really any website, the faster you can get people to your call to action, in this case is start to listen to podcasts and subscribe to a podcast. I just wanted a theme that was lightweight and fast and clean as possible. So we're going to walk through some of the elements that I would use or that I would customize for my podcast website, and we're going to start with the logo. So customizing the logo is fairly simple. There's many ways to get to it. I'm going to show it to you right from where we just left off in our template parts. So we're going to preview the header and then edit the header section. And I'm going to start here only just to show you that the header section can be customized just like you would customize any Elementor website. If you wanted to change things with the entire header, like the font size of the navigation, the width of the layout, all of that is done in the header section, and that's going to be the header template part, which means that it happens throughout any changes go throughout the entire Elementor website. But I just want to show you, if we click on the little edit icon there, this is the section that will customize what happens with the logo or the site URL from the template's point of view. So you can see right here, it says to edit the logo of your site, go to site identity. This is a WordPress thing, less than it is an Elementor thing. But you can change what happens with the actual link of that logo. So if you wanted to change this, you could add some dynamic features to it, or just change it all together. It's totally up to you. But let's go to site identity, and then we'll upload a logo. I already have one in the media library, so I'm just going to click this, insert the media, click on update. And we're going to preview this so that we can see what it looks like inside, or as the user would see it. So let's go to preview. Just a second. So there's our logo. That's the logo that we added, and this is just showing the header section of the template. But if we go back to edit with Elementor, and then we edit this logo again, actually, no, I don't want to swap it. I want to edit the logo. Sorry, close this. Edit the logo. And now I can change the style. So if I wanted this to be a little bit wider with a bigger height, now this logo has some extra padding around it. It's not the best logo for a logo if you were having this on your website. But you can see here, I can edit the style of that logo if I wanted to. If I want to make it a little bit wider. And I think the height's fine. We're just going to leave it at maybe just 200 is a good common ground. Okay, so that's how we would edit our logo. If I'm putting in my logo, I made this logo in Canva. Really easy to do. Again, you want to clean up and maybe crop out some of this white space, but Canva is a great tool to create graphics, and we'll be using Canva to create other graphics for this website. So I want to move to customizing the homepage, but before we do, I want to copy a short code from the podcast subscribe buttons widget. I have this plugin already set up. If we go into edit it, you can see you can customize a whole bunch of sort of look and feel options, background colors, text colors, all that stuff. And I already put in and pre-populated some placeholder links. So if you have your podcast listed on Amazon, Apple, Google, Pocket Cast, Spotify, and you also want to show your RSS, you can put the respective links in this short code, and that'll display the icon most appropriate for the link. But first, I'm going to copy this short code because we're going to need that for the homepage design that I'm going to talk about in a second. So we'll go to All Pages, Homepage, Edit with Elementor. You can see there's our logo from modifying that before. And, your call to action or your homepage hero section should be, whatever it is you think that will compel a subscriber to click and subscribe to your podcast or join a newsletter, whatever that might be. I might say something like the best Elementor and WordPress podcast. I can't type today. Podcast for agency owners. We publish every Wednesday at 8 a.m. So just from the marketing perspective, obviously, if this is the first time you've seen Elementor, editing a homepage, just typing in the text. It's visual. It's right in the Elementor editor. It's very easy. It's how you'd want to build a website, and you can edit this stuff as you see fit. The call to action is really giving somebody that compelling moment to say, yes, this podcast is for me. Whether you're marketing a podcast or a website or a product, like that's what you want to do. You want to make sure people instantly understand why this could be for them. So it's the best Elementor and WordPress podcast. Do I want to listen to an Elementor and WordPress podcast? Maybe. And if I say yes, but maybe I'm just a pizza shop owner, I'm going to drill down on that premise a little bit more and say for agency owners, because maybe I really want it to be for agency owners. Or I could say small business owners And that would set the premise, boy, I really can't type today. That would set the premise that this podcast is now for small business owners. So this could be the end user of Elementor and WordPress. So you might be saying, Matt, why are you even spending time on this? Because it's important. A lot of podcasters that come to me for advice, they say that their show's not growing, they're not getting the downloads, etc. Well, it's like we're doing today, how fast and how clean and how effective is your website? Because your website is going to be your best marketing tool. Your best marketing tool for a podcast is word of mouth. In fact, that's how shows grow, first and foremost, word of mouth, you appearing on other podcasts, stuff like that. But then other people tell other people about your podcast. So when that telephone game is in effect, that word of mouth, and somebody gets to the website and they say, oh yeah, they told me to come here. What was this podcast about again? You don't want them searching around and hunting for that value. So it's the best Elementor and WordPress podcast for small business owners. I'm going to switch it back to agency owners because I think that kind of drills down a little bit more. And then letting them know, hey, we publish every Wednesday at 8 a.m. This is your subheadline. Not a big deal, but it lets people know that you're doing this every week. You're showing up every Wednesday, 8 a.m. You get a podcast. Pretty important for a lot of people. Okay, so that's modifying the call to action, the headline. Another simple thing that we're going to add here is the subscribe links that I mentioned before. We're going to add a short code widget, and we're just going to drag this right in and put it right below. And then we're going to paste that short code that I copied and pasted before. And now you can see those links all show up right below that because you want them to immediately get this stuff. I'm going to put this to inline auto. That'll center it. You want your user to quickly get there and get to the website and subscribe to their favorite player. You don't have to list every single one, but if you know your audience listens on Amazon Music or certainly uses Pocket Cast or Spotify, you want to give them that option. Because it's a WordPress podcast, maybe you want to give RSS because you want people to get the direct link and not have to send people to a particular channel. Like if they have another listening device that they use and you don't list it, well, they can copy the RSS feed right there. And getting those links, like I said before, podcast subscribe plugin, I set those up already. You can customize this, like that background should be probably just white and it shouldn't transition like that. But you can modify those things in the back end with that plugin. So let's just do a quick recap while we're here. We've changed the logo to our podcast logo. We've made a great call to action and a premise for our show, reasons why people should subscribe, and then we'll give them the podcast subscribe buttons immediately. Now, another thing that I like to do as a podcaster, measuring the success of my show, is going to be adding in an email news opt-in. So one of the great things about Elementor is it comes with a form functionality that you can tie right into an email service like MailChimp or any other email service that collects email. And it's very straightforward. You don't need another plugin to modify it. You can see right here, the default form fields are name, email, and message. I'm going to say, well, we don't need all those. We simply only need the email, and this will be what we'll collect our email subscribers with. And it doesn't matter what platform you use. Like I said, MailChimp, MailerLite, all of those are pretty straightforward to configure and set up in the back end of your form, your Elementor form settings. But I do want to break this up a little bit. I kind of don't like that, how close they are right there. So let's just center this and say, I'm going to say something like this, or join the newsletter to get it right inside your inbox. And we're going to make this an H4. Let's just see if that changes. H6, nope. So these might not be styled. Let's go small. That's too small. So medium, large. That's pretty good right there. So large. And that's how I would break up that. I might even put in a spacer to break it up like that. Perfect. So that's how I would structure the homepage. I would say Best Elementor and WordPress podcast for agency owners. We publish every Wednesday at 8 a.m. Quickly, user, grab your subscribe links or join the newsletter to get it right inside your inbox. This is a pretty weak call to action. So if you have some value, download our top shows, get the top shows delivered to you in a PDF form or something like that, some kind of lead magnet as it's known. That's what I would do there. And this is going to be that above the fold. I know that's a really old thing to say in the year 2022, but it's that above the fold call to action that people will land on the website, immediately know why they're here and what they need out of your podcast. And you're giving them 2 ways to connect: the subscribe links and the subscribe via email. Okay. One last thing to do on the homepage is the popular posts. This is just pulling in blog post titles here, but one of the really powerful things of Elementor is being able to modify what's known as the query loop. I'm going to click on that little edit button on the right-hand side. That's going to pull up the tray for the settings for this loop, and it's going to be really easy. We're just going to switch the query from posts to podcast. Now, this is something that, again, is specific to the Seriously Simple Podcasting plugin. I'm going to click that, and you'll see them populate. After we just hit update, it'll populate and refresh. Scroll down, there they are. So there are our episode, that's our artwork that we attach to each page. That's the graphic that I made in Canva, like I said. And then if we click into that, this will bring us into we're going to preview it on the homepage first. Let's go to viewing the page. And this is our homepage. This is what it looks like as the viewer. This is everything we just set up in Elementor. If we click on episode 3, it brings us to this, to our page, to our post that has the Seriously Simple Podcasting player, and then it has the episode title. So that brings us right there. We changed the loop to go from posts to our podcasts. So I want to move into a bit of a bonus round. You might notice that there's no featured image showing here, and that's the episode artwork that shows up on the homepage. Let's say I want to make it show up on the single page. Now, the reason why is because the Elementor template is set up to only show on blog posts. That's the post type for WordPress, but we can simply add a condition to the template. So if we go to the theme builder, single posts, click on that, you'll see down here, there's edit conditions. So we'll click on edit conditions. We're going to add a new condition to also include on podcast. So we're going to select that, save and close. And now if we come back to this post, we'll be able to refresh that. And now it will show the featured image along with some better styling. Before it wasn't loading any styling, but now it is. Our post title looks a whole heck of a lot better. It has the date, the user, which is just my default generic user, and then most importantly, the artwork that is associated to the website. Now, that's the really cool thing with Elementor is you can come and change a lot of this single post template. So if you didn't want any of this stuff below, like related posts or the social media posts, you could pull out these entire sections by either editing the footer here or adding or removing from the single post. So Elementor, which is not specific to Elementor Cloud, but basically what this is Elementor Pro that you might be used to seeing on your self-hosted WordPress website. So let's just do a really quick recap. What we've done today is edit the logo. We created a new homepage. Let's get out of this so we can preview it. We've edited the logo. We've changed the call to action. We've put in some podcast subscribe links. We've added in an email opt-in form so that people will join our newsletter. And then we've put in the default episodes to show up on the homepage so that it's not just the blog page or the blog posts that are showing today. Elementor Cloud, I really like it. I think it's fantastic. I think for $99 for one website, you can get everything you need to build your podcast website, small business website, whatever it is. I think they're doing some really fun things at Elementor Cloud, and it's only going to get better because they want to compete against the Wix, the Squarespace, and heck, even WordPress.com for that market share. And I don't think you can go wrong. Like if you really like building websites with Elementor and you want somebody else to do the hosting and the optimization around it, then you can rely on Elementor Cloud. That's it for today's episode. If you liked it, thumbs up, subscribe to the channel. We'll have more videos here soon in the future. Thanks for watching, everybody. See you in the comments.